Hello again, I'm Professor Jim Hoover, and this is a mini lecture on healthcare IT projects. Now, healthcare IT projects have many moving parts and requires very different tools in order to accomplish the job effectively. These projects are notoriously complex and difficult to manage, and they are indeed challenging to complete. So having some tool set is essential to complete them. So please enjoy the video, ask any questions in class, and thanks for watching. IT projects are often described by 5 phases. In the concept phase, this is where we define the project at a broad level. And this phase usually begins with the business case. The next phase is called the definition and planning phase. And this is probably one of the most important. It's where we define the roadmap for the project, the goals and the milestones. And we should do SMART goals: specific, measurable, obtainable, realistic, and timely. Next comes the project launch, where we begin the execution phase of the project. We hire the team, we assign the task, and we work towards a successful completion. During the project, we also measure the performance, adjust the schedule as necessary, do the reporting to the stakeholders, to our team, and finally, when we're done, we close out the project. At the very conception of the project, we need to start thinking about a business case for it, the justification for doing the work. We need to explain what the problem is, who it impacts, the cost involved, etc. In the business case, we need to justify the expense. And one of the ways we do that is creating a return on investment model that we can share with our stakeholders. I have another video on the ROI model. Please watch that because it'll be helpful. But lastly, in the business case, we do a call for action. We request permission to do the project because we believe we've demonstrated the need, return on investment, and justification for actually doing the work. Now, there is a model to help us build business case, and it's called IRAXIS. And that's to help gather the information in a very focused way. IR stands for increased revenues. The AC stands for avoiding cost. And the IS portion means improving service. And it's this framework that helps us communicate the value of the project to the stakeholders. For healthcare IT stakeholders, knowing who they are and how the project impacts them, good or bad, is essential for winning approval for a project. We have to consider people in the following roles: patients, clinical staff, hospital staff, the C-suite executives, the IT department, where the system will be servicing, billing, medical records, specialty practices, labs, etc., and then vendors. What are the benefits and risks for each stakeholder has to be thought out and then addressed prior to doing any presentations so you really understand the scope of the problem and its impact. For example, we often get pushback from IT departments simply because they don't want to add another project to their already big stack of projects. Asking them for amount of resources is often a problem. So we may want to consider how we're going to mitigate that impact to IT. And lastly, we want to identify a project champion, someone that's going to really advocate for it and support it high enough up in the ranks of the organization for their efforts to really have some weight and impact. The definition and planning stages is performed after we get approval for the project. The business case, the return on investments, and every other supporting documentation, they are now our guidance for building the project plan. And we're going to call that a roadmap. We can use our SMART goals to build that roadmap. We will develop a scope statement to define the purpose, benefits, and deliverables and time frame for the project. And this roadmap will help us manage the project to success. One of the most important documents of all the project documents is the work breakdown schedule or structure, the WBS. The WBS breaks down the project into manageable chunks of work, small units that will usually follow the pattern of 4/40 or 8/80. Work that can be performed in 4 days, no more than 40 hours, or 8 days and no more than 80 hours. This work breakdown structure or schedule becomes the data that is used to create a Gantt chart. Most of you have probably seen one of these before. It lays out the timeline and dependencies for each task in the project. When something slips, you can see how it impacts the other projects downstream. Also important is the communication plan. Risk management will identify all of the foreseeable risks. Common ones include unrealistic time, cost estimates, customer review cycles that take longer than expected, budget cuts, resources aren't available, inclement weather, power outages and machine crashes, and so forth. Once the planning is finished, we enter the project launch phase. We assign all of our resources based on their roles to the various little components of work that's in the work breakdown structure in the Gantt chart. It's fairly common to hold project kickoff meetings led by the project manager, PM. The PM also keeps all of the stakeholders informed as necessary and updates the project plan where required. And while the project is ongoing, we will monitor the performance of the project to try to stay on time and on budget. Sometimes it's helpful to have key performance indicators to track this progress, and at each milestone, the project manager should verify the QA checks so that we have a high quality product from start to finish. And if not, we need to address those defects then before we move on to subsequent phases. The program manager also tracks the cost of the actual spend versus what was budgeted. And let's face it, sometimes new ideas come up during the project where changes pop up that we really have to consider, rebudget it, and those changes have to be worked into the schedule. PM continues to communicate with the team, and at the conclusion of the project, the PM should conduct a project post-mortem to look at the lessons learned, things we did well. We should also look at the problems we encountered during the project and see if we predicted them in our risk model. With all projects, there will be loose ends we have to tidy up, so we have those in what's called a project punch list. PM should publicly recognize those who had outstanding performances. There we have it, a quick glimpse into what the complexities are for building a healthcare IT project. It's a lot, and every slide in here has much more information that really goes into having those phases be a success. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.